Record. Perfect. So today our special topic is small business assistance. I'm sure you all remember Greg Bergman, who used to join our calls way back when. Greg has entered the wonderful world of retirement, so we can all be jealous of Greg this Monday morning as we're all facing our work weeks. But he's been replaced by the wonderful Rebecca Rowe, who I had a chance to talk to over Zoom last week. And today she's going to share with us a little bit more about the Small Business Development Center and how they can help new and existing small businesses. I know a lot of us automatically think about business planning when you think about the SBDC, but it really is a lot more than that. So without further ado, Rebecca, I think you can share your screen. I'll let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Thank you, Katie. Move. Okay. Okay, are you able to see my slide?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you to Katie and the Economic Alliance for inviting me to join the Coffee Talk today. I began as the director of the North Central Small Business Development Center on January 20th. So it's been about 2 months that I've been in this position, and I'm very happy to be here. So to begin with, I'll talk a little bit about small business development centers. There are 9 SBDCs in the state of Minnesota, and SBDCs provide guidance to help start, sustain, and grow businesses. The North Central SBDC serves 11 counties, including Wadena, and these 11 counties have over 350,000 residents and 34,000 business establishments. So a little background on SBDCs. SBDCs are public-private partnerships, and they're cooperatively funded by the federal government, the state government, and local sources. And so the United States Small Business Administration provides about 50% of the funding for SBDCs. And then the Department of Employment and Economic Development provides about 15%, and then local partners provide an additional 35% to the SBDC. So our SBDC is hosted by Central Lakes College, and my office is at Central Lakes College in Brainerd. Other partners with whom we work closely include the Cass County Economic Development Corporation, who is a financial partner, sponsor of the North Central SBDC, the Initiative Foundation, and Minnesota Business Finance Council. And so as Katie mentioned, we work with businesses who are pre-venture, who are startup businesses in that they have been in business for less than a year. And we also work with businesses, long-standing businesses who have been in business for more than 1 year. So in calendar year 2020, the North Central SBDC provided over 3,200 hours of counseling to 520 local entrepreneurs and businesses throughout our 11 county region. And I did look, and so if we have about 520 clients in CY 2020, 20 of them, about 3.8%, were from Wadena. And if we had 3,200 hours of counseling, about 65 of those hours were with Wadena clients, and so about 2%. And so the North Central SBDC facilitated access to $20.2 million in capital in CY 2020 for business investment. And as was especially critical within this past calendar year, we provided over 800 hours of technical assistance to help businesses manage the impact of the COVID-19 global pandemic. Finally, I have added my contact information there, the North Central SBDC website, as the Minnesota SBDC website, and the United States SBDC website there as well. I'm actually going to go ahead and take this off the screen. I can go into a little more about myself and take questions as well. I do get tired of Zoom presentations where I'm only looking at the presentation, not having an opportunity to see those to whom I'm speaking. So little more informal. So my background, as I mentioned, I started at the SBDC in January of 2020. I actually recently moved back to the area from Washington, D.C. I previously worked at the United States Small Business Administration in D.C. I also so my most prior employer was the United States International Development Finance Corporation, DFC. DFC is actually a new government agency and used to be the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. And I worked in financial and portfolio management. Before that, I was at SBA. And at SBA, I worked with a variety of programs. I started out in the Office of Investment and Innovation at SBA, which has the SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research, and STTR, Small Business Technology Transfer, as well as the Growth Accelerator Fund Competition, and the SBIC program, Small Business Investment Companies, which is the venture capital and private equity investment of the SBA. I also worked extensively in policy for SBA. And so when you see, for example, Code of Federal Regulations with different aspects of PPP or EIDL that individuals are reading currently, I was one of those individuals sitting at SBA writing such rules. And so I very much enjoyed my time in DC. I am from Minnesota originally. I live in Aiken. So, Wadena, we have Aiken over here. We're kind of coming together in Brainerd. I'm happy to be here. Within the state of Minnesota, I did work in Albert Lea for a period of time. And so in Albert Lea, I worked with ALEAP, the Albert Lea Entrepreneur Advancement Program, as well as ALEDA, which is the Economic Development Agency of Albert Lea. My background in terms of education is in economics, and so I have my master's degree in economics, and I'm happy, again, to be here in Minnesota, working with the SBDC, speaking extemporaneously to you. The SBDC is a entity, a effort in which I strongly believe. So as I mentioned, you have the federal government, SBA, and then you have resource partners. The SBDC is a resource partner of the United States Small Business Administration. And so I first learned about SBDCs when I was working in Albert Lea. And we had clients who, for example, would drive to St. Cloud to get services through the SBDC rather than go to Rochester, which was much closer. But individuals were hesitant about reaching out to the Rochester SBDC because they wanted to ensure the confidentiality of the information. And so I guess that is something I can emphasize, is that any business information shared with the SBDC through one-on-one consulting efforts is held confidentially. And these services are provided at no cost. And so I go back to the idea that in CY 2020, the North Central SBDC provided about 3,200 hours of consulting to 520 businesses. This occurs, we have approximately 12 different consultants who work throughout our 11 county region. We have clients who, as I mentioned, we have pre-venture, we have startup, we have, businesses. And so they work through a variety of, topics. We work with access to capital, loan packaging. I have a list here: financial analysis, accounting systems, market research, marketing plans, feasibility analyses, startup assistance, and as widely discussed, business plans. But kind of going back to my mention of SBDCs being a resource partner of the United States Small Business Administration. So whereas I learned about SBDCs kind of broadly while I was working at Albert Lee, I had the opportunity to become more intimately familiar with SBDCs from a policy perspective while working in DC. And my thought process then was that if anyone has a question about any aspect of SBA, you don't really reach out to the SBA district office. They're not staffed to manage everybody from the state of Minnesota reaching out to the SBA district office. You go to your local SBDC. And so in that capacity, we have a very close working relationship with the SBA district office. Right now, one of our key efforts is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. And so this is going to be launched on, I think, April 8th, Thursday, April 8th. And so we're working very closely with SBA currently to understand the rules and policies and procedures attached to this grant program, not loan program, that'll be up to total 16 billion through the program for live venue operators, movie theaters, concert spaces, museums. And so specifically, for example, if you have a question about SVOG, if you have a question about PPP or EIDL, you're welcome to connect with the SBDC, and we are here and staffed and ready to help you. And that's kind of the purpose of SBDCs. We're existence in local communities throughout the nation. Our consultants are located here. We're usually happy to meet anyone and everyone in person. A lot of our services are being provided remotely at this point in time. We do, though, we do have some consultants who are now beginning to meet outside, so at local parks and other places, because there is a preference at time to have that opportunity to have that face-to-face conversation. So I see that I have now spoke for approximately 13 minutes. I really, going back to Katie, I appreciate the opportunity to talk, to engage, to understand. I've spent a lot of my initial time within this position listening. I don't have the experience of having previously been an SBDC director. I don't have the experience of being an assistant director. I do, though, have great colleagues who have helped me understand my roles and responsibilities and kind of taken my perspective, which is a beneficial perspective. I have a beneficial experience, of course, but to kind of situate that within the position for my current roles and responsibilities, and just kind of recognizing where Wadena is. I'd like to share as well that you have the West Central SBDC, which is at Concordia College in Moorhead, and then you also have the Northwest Minnesota SBDC in Bemidji, and the one in Bemidji, whereas usually SBDCs are hosted by educational institutions such as Central Lakes College or Concordia College. The Northwest and then the Northeast SBDCs in the state of Minnesota are actually currently hosted by initiative foundations. And so, as I mentioned, we work very closely with the Initiative Foundation, but also going back to that comment upon Albert Lee, if there's a point in time where you say, hey, I'm in Wadena, I would actually like to reach out to the West Central SBDC, we're happy to facilitate that as well. We really do operate very much in partnership, and we are here to start, grow, and succeed small businesses throughout the state of Minnesota. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for that crash course in SBDCs. Any questions for her?
I don't have a question, Katie, but I want to say it's very nice to have a fellow gobbler on the call this morning.
It's nice to be here. I actually, so in Aiken, we have the Beanery, and I'm very fond of their sandwich, which is called the Gobbler. And I actually went in to get it yesterday at the Beanery because, it's sometimes good to get out of your house. And so it was good to go visit the Beanery yesterday and get myself a Gobbler sandwich.
Well, we promise not to be too hard on you gobblers over here in Wadena. I can see Dean already shaking his head, but all are welcome, even if we went to Aiken. Any other questions?
Katie, I have a couple comments.
Go
Rebecca,
ahead.
I'm Lisa Grable-Meach. I'm from Todd Whitney Electric Cooperative, and we have a revolving economic development loan fund. And so over the years, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs with their projects, and we've routed them your direction, I think, to help with financial planning and business planning. And I was just curious, and I know you're new to your role, but one of the things, I have an accounting background, so one of the things I see entrepreneurs struggle with is the financial planning. They do a little handiwork in Excel, or they write it down on a sheet of paper. And quite often they struggle with their cash flow statements.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of that basic financial planning. And I'm curious if you guys have ever rolled out a template that people can use, a consistent template. And if not, it's just food for thought. Because again, I see things that they struggle to balance, and you know, they've got a passion for something that's awesome, but they may not have the financial background to help support it. Any thoughts on that, or?
I would think that we do have some sort of template. We do have very experienced consultants. We also have this great course. Have you heard of Profit Mastery? So Profit Mastery is actually a course. It's kind of a financial basics course that we offer through the North Central SBDC to small businesses. And the benefit there is that there is a coursework, probably about 20 hours or so, but then the businesses also work one-on-one with the consultant throughout the course. And so they can kind of learn the general material through the course, and then separately have that individual one-on-one time to kind of apply it directly to their business.
Okay. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. And I know, Katie, you've been the go-between for us on some of the financial packages, and so we'll continue to learn as we go. It is just something I see that you know, and sadly, it's sometimes the last thing they think about, because they have all their widgets in place and their service in place. Dean, you're kind of shaking your head too. I mean, it's the financial package that we look at, and I really feel for them. And so, yeah, if there's anything that you could give them on a very simple basis to get them started off before they put a lot of pen to paper, because they end up backpedaling a lot.
And I would recommend at any point in time directing them our way. Again, we have clients, you know, who work kind of throughout the whole life cycle of a business, and so we're happy to, you know, assist those sorts of businesses.
Okay, yeah, and that's the other comment I have, is I do see these entrepreneurs really start to struggle in year 4, 5, and 6. You know, their enthusiasm has carried them this far, and whether they struggle with their next step marketing plan or their next step financial plan. And so it is good if they could get in on the front end with a consultant to kind of guide them. That's economical, because sometimes that's the last thing they can spend their dollars on, or on some of those viable consultants.
And actually, something that was kind of interesting when Katie and I had the opportunity to talk last week, I mentioned how at times business will really begin a relationship with an SBDC consultant. And so I reach out to them to you know, to discuss my ideas for starting a business, and then maybe I won't even talk to them for, you know, 6 or 8 months, but then I need to reach out again, and I do. And I think that's actually really advantageous in that you have developed this relationship with this consultant and have established that, and then can reach out when needed. And so that's kind of an interesting part of the SBDC that I wasn't really so intimately familiar with previously, but that is definitely something I would recommend to businesses as well.
Right. That's a good idea, because again, as a partner, you know, we're a co-op, we're not in the banking business, but we love supporting our local communities and economic development. But I do see that as a gap in the future years. So even as a team, we can encourage them to continue that relationship unless they've gone on with their CPA or someone like that. But that's good to know, Rebecca.
And it's good to know, I think, as well, that so maybe you develop a relationship with a financial specialist. We have some within our consultants, but now you're interested in marketing, right? And you need to reach out to a different consultant. Our consultants will facilitate those relationships amongst our consultants. And so you don't need to always stick with one consultant. You can work with a wide breadth of the consultants who work with the SBDC. And I often say as well that I often within the past 2 months, say that, if we are not able to meet the needs of a business through our consultants, then we need to reanalyze our consultants, right? If we are not able to help with a need that does exist, then we need to reanalyze ourselves and say, how can we do better? And so if that does exist, we're happy to, to reanalyze.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. I appreciate suggestions too.
Yeah. Nope, that's good. I think that was the few questions I had in comments.
Thank
So
you.
welcome aboard. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other questions for Rebecca or comments? All right, I guess I have one real quick. You mentioned that Profit Mastery course. Is that available on demand, or do you have like a schedule for offering it?
We have a schedule for offering it. And so St. Cloud is actually going to be the lead center for that effort. And if you have interest, I do think that there is potentially a cost that's going to be associated with this time, maybe around $100 or so. The SBDC network in the state of Minnesota did previously offer that course, I think in the fall of this year, and had very poor completion rates in that businesses or individuals who registered were not very maybe dedicated to completing the course. And so I think the rationale for having the fee attached to it, potentially this round, I haven't yet heard. Barry Kirchhoff leads the central office, is to kind of ensure a greater amount of dedication to the course. But it's typically, I think it's on demand. It typically was held in person. We've held it here in Brainerd previously. Actually, my predecessor, Greg Bergman, was a facilitator of that course. And if there's a need and if there is significant interest, we're happy to have additional sessions of that course. And kind of going back to what Lisa's mentioned, we're actually working right now with the Brainerd Chamber of Commerce. They had some ideas on what their local businesses needed in terms of kind of webinars or topics. I do not like webinars that don't have kind of an end goal, that you try to achieve something, that you're getting some sort of valuable information. You're not hearing the same information regurgitated over and over. I think we're all being invited to a lot of webinars and a lot of events currently. But with the Brainerd Chamber of Commerce, they have some specific topics that they think would be advantageous. We're going through explaining the loan packaging process and going through examples. That'll be one webinar. But kind of the Brainerd Chamber of Commerce thought of those ideas, came to the North Central SBDC and said, hey, can we partner with you to make available these sessions? And so we have and this is going to be financially paid for by the North Central SBDC. We have that sort of funding, especially right now if it has to do with COVID. We're even more happy to be engaged. And so if anyone on this call has ideas for Wadena and how this would, have topics that would be relevant to the Wadena community, we'd be happy to develop those webinars and work with our consultants. Again, a wide breadth of experience and knowledge by those consultants to develop those webinars specifically for Wadena. That's our responsibility as the SBDC.
I love that idea, Rebecca. I'm looking at a lot of my colleagues shaking their head and kind of giving me the eye, the good idea eye. So I'll probably be reaching out to you in the next few weeks about that because our businesses could certainly benefit, especially as we're moving into another new and unknown phase of the pandemic. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information and a lot of
Yeah, and I had a couple additional kind of follow-ups, making sure that everybody is aware of kind of just like different current status. Um, so there's the PPP loan tax conformity bill that was passed by the Minnesota Senate, and it's now under review by the Minnesota House. This is the the federal government specifically stating in the CARES Act that forgiven PPP loans are not includable in taxable income at the federal level. But Minnesota, as a static conformity state with respect to the Internal Revenue Code, has to pass legislation to conform to the most recent provisions of the CARES Act. And Minnesota is the only state in the upper Midwest that has yet to exempt forgiven PPP loan income from state taxes, which is kind of interesting, broadly kind of interesting for everybody to be aware of. Currently, PPP is supposed to expire on March 31st. Good to know that the House last week, so we're talking about the federal government now, passed the PPP Extension Act with a vote of 415 to 3. And so that would extend the PPP application period until May 31st, which is instead of March 31st. And so small businesses would have an additional 2 months to apply. And also within the PPP Extension Act, you have an additional month for the United States Small Business Administration to process applications. And so SBA could continue processing applications until June 30th. And there's widespread agreement that PPP should be extended. So I think it'll be interesting to watch to see what happens with the Senate this week. My understanding is that there's at least 2 versions of the Senate's bill right now with the PPP extension, and so it'll be interesting to see what proceeds. And just, I think that every opportunity I have to speak is I am sharing knowledge, and then you can share knowledge with other people as well, is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, as I mentioned. And so the applications will open on Thursday, April 8th. Live venue operators, movie theaters, concert spaces, museums will be eligible for this $16 billion total grant, and applicants can receive 45% of gross earned revenue up to $10 million each. Again, this is a grant. One aspect with that I'm imparting, and hopefully you again can share with other people, is it's very critical to begin your application as soon as possible. I say that the application will not open until Thursday, April 8th. There are copies of the application, though, available, so you can see what is included on the application. And also critical for the SVOG is that you need a DUNS number, and you need to register in the System for Award Management, SAM, of the federal government. And individuals have said that these 2 steps can take up to 2 weeks. I'm intimately familiar with SAM because I will share that at one point in time, I was the SBA help desk for SAM. And so, again, it can be quick, but it's also just, it's very finicky as well. And so if anybody's interested in SVOG, get started or connect with the SBDC or because we're happy to help, we're happy to share copies of the proposed application that we have. And Katie, my apologies, the one last comment will be that through the American Rescue Plan Act, you also had the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And so that's going to be a total of $28.6 billion. It's an undetermined start date yet, but a lot of businesses are already starting to prep for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, in that you need the DUNS as well as the SAM registration. Katie, I can share articles with you that discuss how to prep. The advantages of these, of course, is that they are both grant opportunities. And so we encourage, we're happy to help too. We encourage any businesses in the area to apply because the funding is limited and it is on a first come, first service to a degree, in that I know that SVOG, it depends on there's factors that impact, when you will be considered within the process. And so those are some updates on opportunities through, due to the devastating impacts of our global pandemic.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Tammy, I see you've had your hand raised, ready to ask a question. What's up?
I am. And actually, my question was, Rebecca, welcome. I'm Tammy
Thank you.
Flippy with Sourcewell. So was regarding the entertainment venues and museums. So you answered some of my questions, but one that I still want to ask, is this for also nonprofit businesses, or is it for profit only? Do you know that answer?
I don't know that answer for sure. I know that there has been discussion of educational institutions, say, that have a venue, and if they're eligible, and museums, we've discussed museums, whether museums are eligible.
Because
I
most
would,
museums,
yep, are going to be.
museums would be nonprofit. Yeah.
Yeah, I would lean towards, there's a possibility. I probably shouldn't say yes. There's a possibility. I can email Katie, or you can, chat me your email address. There's about a 20-page fact document right now for the SVOG, and it will say in there. Unfortunately, I don't know. I should, acquire more information and understand myself. But we can look through it. I also, though, encourage any sorts of questions. The benefit right now is that we as a SBDC have direct contact to the leadership team of the SVOG. And so every Thursday right now, we are meeting directly with the leadership team of the SVOG. And so, Tammy, for example, I would think that, within 30 minutes of being off this call, I can have an answer for you, either through looking at the facts. And if I don't, and if I cannot find the answer there, we can always wait until I can email somebody, or we can wait until Thursday. The SBA has actually said that these Thursday sessions have been very beneficial for them because they've understood the questions kind of flowing up from potential applicants for the SVOG.
And then if I may, just one other quick question. So you said first come, first serve. So they're really not looking at geographic or any other demographic?
Well, there are multiple different conditions that are going to apply. I know, there's a specific amount of the 16 billion that's reserved for entities with, say, less than 50 employees. I think it's with the restaurant grant that there is a specific amount set aside for women-owned businesses. With the so here, the first priority for the first 14 days of SVOG will be entities that suffered a 90% or greater revenue loss between April 2020 through December 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that will be your first 14 days. And then the next 14 days are going to be 70%. And then the next beginning 28 days after the initial opening on the April 8th will be entities that suffered a 25% or greater revenue loss between one quarter of 2019 and the corresponding quarter of 2020.
That's awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate that information. Good information.
Thank you, Tammy. And again, we have, I'll share it with Katie. I'm very hesitant we have a copy of the application that most likely will be used. And so, for example, within the process at SBA, SBA has to submit an example of the document that they'll use to OMB, Office of Management and Budget, and OMB will review it and then provide any sort of feedback to SBA. And so we have that copy. It's going to be an online application, but this is really helpful and I've enjoyed looking through it. I've benefited through looking through it because it'll give you an idea of the information that's being requested so that you can actively prepare.
Thank you, Tammy, for the great questions, and thank you, Rebecca, for the really in-depth answers. Any other questions?
Katie, I don't have a question, just a comment. Rebecca said she doesn't have a lot of experience at being a director. You sound and act like a very experienced director. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Poston, for lifting up our new director, because she impressed me on our first meeting, and I think she's all impressing us right now. So you have friends here in Wadena County.
Thank you. It's a big change of pace for me, because I'm very familiar with Minnesota, right? I grew up in Minnesota, but I have not lived in Minnesota since I graduated from high school. And so it's at least 15 years, I will say that. And it's great to be back. I love being near family. I love spending time outside. Kayaking is a complete hobby. I love kayaking. And so I think you have some good lakes in Wadena. So I'll put the kayak on my car and come visit sometime soon this summer.
Yeah, we'd love to have you cut. We have wasn't it, someone correct me if I'm wrong, the first canoe trail in Minnesota was on the Crow Wing River. So we have regular stops, and as things lighten up, we'd love to show you around, see the sights. All right.
In DC, I went from the Potomac all the way down to Great Falls on my canoe. And so I'm always up for those sorts of adventures.
Oh, wow. Love it.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Any other final questions or comments before we move on? Perfect. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming and sharing all of your information with us. Let's keep it rolling. Representative Poston, since you're on the call, do you have any updates for us from St. Paul?
Yeah, I can throw a couple things out there, Katie. First of all, sorry I was a little late, and I'm going to have to cut off a little early because I'm on back-to-back Zooms today. But the four things that we're really working on in the House right now, there's a lot of things that we're working on, but the four priorities are securing funds for the George Floyd trial. We're trying to get some security funds out there because we're expecting some problems. And we don't know where those problems will be. So we're trying to get some money out there to help, law enforcement wherever that might be. So that's kind of on the top of the priority list. Rebecca talked about the PPP tax issue. That is on the top of our priority list as well. I will tell you that the state of Minnesota will conform, but we are dragging our feet on conforming. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure. I think that they're trying to amend something to the bill because it's been postponed a few times or voted down a few times. But we will eventually conform with that. I wish we had conformed with it several weeks ago before all the tax filing and everything that's taken place, but we didn't. The other thing we're working on from a tax standpoint is the unemployment insurance tax. Those people that were unemployed and got the $600 extra in their unemployment check or $300 extra in some cases, right now are facing a very large tax bill. And we're trying to fix that. And I believe that we will get that over the finish line as well. Wished again, we would have gotten that done sooner, but we will get it done, I believe, before the end of session. We right now are sitting with federal funds that are coming into Minnesota with a $4.2 billion surplus looking out into the next biennium. So there's no reason that we can't take care of PPP. There's no reason we can't take care of this unemployment. And quite honestly, there's some other tax issues that I hope we can get done too, like eliminating the Social Security tax once and for all in Minnesota. The other thing that we're working on is funding for summer school, weekend school, summer school, evening school, whenever there can be, school, because we all know that we've all heard that our kids are behind. And we need to get them caught up. So we're working very hard on funding for the schools to be able to have those kinds of activities. So those are really the priorities right now. There's a lot of things being worked on. We've had almost 3,000 bill introductions in the first 10 weeks of session. So there's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of it won't even get heard in committee or nothing will happen with it, but these are the priorities that we're working on right now. And I guess I should say the other priority is COVID, making sure that the vaccine continues to roll out well. And, talking to, I don't know if Joel's on the call or I don't know if Tim is on the call, but, talking to them, this thing is rolling out really well. I got my first shot last week and I got it at Essentia Health, and I was just really impressed with the efficiency and how they operated. And I know that Lakewood and Tri-County are doing the same sorts of things. So those are kind of the priorities from St. Paul, and I would be happy to try to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Well, you certainly have a lot on your plate. No reason to complain for being bored
No,
down
no.
in St. Paul.
There's no boredom, that's for sure.
Nope. Any questions? All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Katie, anybody that does have any questions or needs, I try to be on here as often as I can, but during session it's kind of hard. So if you have any questions, my contact information is really easy. You go to the state legislature page and you can find me quite easy. Please give me a call, reach out and let me know what's on your mind. Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great day.
One quick question for you, Representative Poston.
Yes, sir.
If you have a minute.
Yes, sir.
On this last stimulus bill, the federal stimulus bill, do you expect to see any funds trickling down to businesses in the forms of grants like we have seen via local government, be it county or city government?
Dean, the answer to that is yes, I do.
Good.
What exactly it looks like, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Okay.
But
Right.
yes, and I do, and certainly, especially the legislators that are out in Greater Minnesota are advocating for that heavily.
Okay, and I have had some requests from a few local businesses that are still struggling
Sure.
to keep their doors open, asking if there will be any additional help to them from this $1.9 trillion stimulus. So
If I can get on here next week, and I hate to say I don't know what my schedule, or not next week, is it 2 weeks, Katie?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. If I can get on here in 2 weeks, Dean, I will most likely have an answer at that point in time.
Okay.
Like Rebecca said, we're waiting for some information to come through, and we'll need to digest that a little bit, and then I can maybe expound on that answer.
Okay, that sounds great. I do have a meeting with a local business owner on Wednesday morning. That's the topic of discussion. How am I going to keep my doors open? So
when I see something, Dean, or hear something, I'll come directly to you if it's before our next meeting.
Wonderful. That'd be great.
All right.
Thank
buddy.
you. Mhm.
You bet.
Yep.
You bet. I don't see any other hands, Katie.
all right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Everybody have an awesome day. Bye-bye.
All right. Next up, I'm just seeing who's on today. Dean, what are the updates from WDA?
Well, the one thing that I have that I did just mention with Representative Poston is the need for additional funding to some of our local businesses, and not across the board, but there are definitely still businesses out there that are struggling, and I'm hoping that we see some opportunity to assist those through this last round of stimulus. There's out of $1.9 trillion, there's got to be something available to our local small business community. So that I'm working on, trying to still communicate with our businesses to see where they're at, who needs help, and who's doing okay the way things are. Been working, Katie and I have been working together quite a bit on a number of different projects. One is the customer service seminar that's coming up. And I did send out an email to a lot of our local businesses. We've got the link on social media, and if you see that, please do share it, spread the word for customer service web or seminar that'll be held at M State in Wadena. And
It's on, remember, it's on Zoom.
yes, it is a Zoom. Yeah, it's not
I
live,
just
it's on Zoom.
I just threw the link in the chat if people want more information on that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Katie. So that been working on a number of housing projects. Childcare is still very much in the forefront. In fact, I think we have a Zoom coming up this week or next, Katie, with Paul. We've got a number of business expansions going on in Wadena, a number of business relocations, kind of a stir, I'm going to call it. One business is going to move, and that causes another business to move into that previous space, and another business to move into that previous space. But what the end result will be is potentially another new business in the space that the final space where someone moves out of. So yeah, there's just a lot of things going on. It's a very exciting time. We're starting to see more permits come in on the planning and zoning side as well, but it's a lot going on. It's a good time in Wadena. There's something happening here.
I won't end that line with what I'm always tempted to. What it is ain't exactly clear. But thank you, Dean. Any questions for him? All right. Jeanette, I see you're on the line. Do you have any updates from the city of Wadena?
Good morning. I was out of the office most of the week, so I just have a couple things. I'm actually, and let's see, David Heyer was on. I don't see him anymore. So I'm looking at a report and trying to decipher it, to be perfectly honest, about how the allocation of funds went. And so I have by state and then city levels of the allocation of the funds. So it looks as though, sorry, I just opened it. The state of Minnesota is getting $4.8 million to be distributed, and possibly, if I'm reading the correctly, city of Wadena is 410. So I was hoping that Deed would, oh, I see his email.
Yeah, I just threw that in there for you. And for anyone else.
Yeah, I'll email him to see what the parameters are going to be on those funds. So as I said, I was out most of the week last week, so really I've been spending the morning and my time for the next few days catching up. One thing that I wanted to just touch on and kind of going on, you know, in the background, Mayor George and I met with Jefferson Lines. And as you know, Jefferson Lines bus company already has a presence here in Wadena, but they want to expand their presence. And then there is an organization, I had it up on my screen, I don't know if I can find it quick enough, that is petitioning to have a second passenger train come into Wadena and elsewhere, but have Wadena be a stop. So, and it would be a daytime train. So that is also going on, and we're working with that. Jefferson Lines wishes to partner with transportation organizations here in Wadena and Wadena County to kind of create a central location where all of the incoming and outgoing could go together. And of course, we have our wonderful train depot. So yeah, we're working on that project. It's one project going on. And, you know, it's audit week, so I'm happy to focus on transportation rather than audit for a few minutes. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
That sounds like a really exciting project. I'm excited.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Jeanette? All right, does anyone else have anything they want to share or add before we close out today? All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Our next coffee talk will be on April 5th. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Expect an email invite next week to that. Thank you so much.